Have you ever heard of the NHL team that vanished?
In the playoffs, the Leafs? Is that what we're talking about?
No. Wait, I'm talking about a team you might have only heard of them in NHL video games because that's the only thing I knew about them was they were a jersey option.
Seals.
The Cleveland Barons.
Fun times in Cleveland today.
They're the next topic in this sports mystery series, and it's because their story is pretty crazy. They only existed for 2 years, and in that time, they have a lot of weird things about them. There was a lot of weird relocation options. There was a trade that might have actually sewered their franchise that I hadn't even heard of before, but it has a very notable name and is like very bad.
Really? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Their arena was like in the middle of nowhere. There was like sheeps, and the final thing was that there's kind of like a conspiracy theory around their team and just general NHL expansion. So, who doesn't love conspiracy theories? Mix that with a sports mystery, we got a hell of an episode.
You should get a tinfoil backwards hat.
NHL franchises right now are worth over $1 billion. Like, how does a franchise just cease to exist? And when I say cease to exist, this is the last team in all of like North American core 4 pro sports of a team that didn't just like relocate somewhere else. They actually just stopped existing.
Just gone.
So this all started back in 1967. Don't say it.
Special year. You got to celebrate it every year.
It all started in 1967 when the NHL expanded for the first time. Do you remember the 6 expansion teams?
Okay. St. Louis Blues.
Yep.
Philadelphia Flyers.
Yep.
LA Kings.
Yep.
Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yes.
Oilers or Flames.
Yeah, you're finished. So you'll notice Cleveland's not in that.
Nope.
And that's because they actually were the California Seals. 2 games into the season, they were like, we don't like that, and they went to the California Golden Seals.
Way better.
Extremely nuts.
I wouldn't have
Imagine
attended the
you're
game
OPG, you've
otherwise.
printed a bunch of hockey cards of these names on the actual cards,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like,
You're just messing it up for everyone.
they're probably just like, we gotta reprint everything.
Extra work. Meanwhile, the graphics team for the broadcast are like, oh no, I have to type a different word.
Is that how they did TV stuff back then? Were they able to just like type graphics in?
I don't even know how computers work.
Yeah,
back
did they
then.
have computers then?
Maybe.
I don't really know anything.
In general or on this?
In general.
Okay.
Except the Cleveland Barons.
Me either.
I know this. So the Seals, Golden Seals, whichever one.
Whatever you call them.
Neither one of them was ever good. Even this one was only for 2 games. But they're pretty much known for like wearing white skates,
Yeah.
having unique jerseys. They were like so bad at this point that like they were even being considered to move to Vancouver at one point. They were the first team to introduce player names on the back of jerseys. They also never had a winning season.
I love the Seals. They're a good team. Nobody believes it yet.
Here's a moment that dramatically changed the future of the franchise. May 22nd, 1970, the Seals traded their 1971 first-round pick in the NHL draft to the Canadiens for Montreal's first-round pick in 1970. Then the Seals were horrible in 1970, which gave the Habs the first overall pick in 1971. Can you guess who they selected with that?
Ooh, this is gonna be bad. Oh, I'll go for a quick guess. Guy Lafleur.
Yeah. Nice work.
Le Dimon Blanc.
Imagine you're this horrible franchise that like just started out, you're looking to get fans, and
Terrible.
that's the trade you make.
Terrible player to miss out on.
I feel like this trade isn't talked about enough as one of the worst trades of all time.
Like it decimated your franchise. It was that bad.
Yeah.
You might as well gamble. Got nothing to lose now.
So this leads to many terrible years for the Seals, and they end up selling the franchise back to the NHL, and the NHL sells it to this hotel mogul from San Fran, Melvin Swig. And they actually sell it.
That's a name meant for a brandy glass.
That's him. Maybe that's how he invented it.
He invented the brandy glass? Okay.
No.
Keep learning here.
Just the term swig. From this is where they eventually moved to Cleveland.
To be fair, though, Cleveland really is that city that you kind of circle and you're like, the NHL should have been in there early. And they probably would have had a pretty strong market.
Well, let's look at Cleveland at this time. So now we're in Cleveland. At this
Currently.
time,
Pre-LeBron James.
that's too easy. That's too easy. Yeah, he saved it.
Cue the song again.
Our economy's based on LeBron James.
The population is decreasing. They're losing a lot of manufacturing jobs. This is kind of like a common theme around kind of
The Rust Belt.
Yes, exactly. It's even beyond that because their river is so polluted. The Cuyahoga River is actually catching on fire at this point. It's genuinely like,
what is
you've heard
in
of
that
tire
water?
fires, you've never heard of river fires. And they actually did have some teams before the Cleveland Barons, okay?
Okay, who? This guy doesn't know.
Well, it was the Cleveland Barons. They were also the Cleveland Barons, but it was an AHL team.
Okay.
From 1937 to 1973, the Cleveland Barons were an AHL team.
This is like a railroad Barons thing. That's why they keep calling themselves Barons.
I'm
asking too many questions.
I don't know what a baron is.
Oh.
I know the beer baron from The Simpsons. California Seals, 1976. The NHL decides to move them to Cleveland.
Okay.
They actually only decided this 6 weeks before the start of the next NHL season.
6 weeks. That's not even like a proper training camp for a team.
Yeah, for you Americans, 6 weeks is about a month and a half. Not only have they given basically no heads up to this entire fan base, so they don't really have an opportunity to sell a bunch of season tickets. It's like, everything is so rushed.
Insane. Like if a concert came to town in 6 weeks, like most people would be scrambling.
Yeah, well, and then on top of that, like, not only do they call it the Cleveland Barons, it's not in Cleveland. It's like somewhere between Cleveland and Akron, legitimately like in farm fields. And there's only like a 2-lane road in, so traffic
Terrible.
in and out of the game is like a nightmare.
How could this not be a success?
Yeah.
What happened in the first season?
Nothing good.
So the Cleveland Barons, who had looked rather pathetic for most of this hockey game.
It was rough.
Didn't go well?
No, right from the onset. Okay, so for the first game of their franchise history, they sell 8,900 tickets, which is less than 50% capacity of their arena, which is like an 18,000 seat arena.
Tough start.
Yeah, not great. Their attendance throughout the whole year is pretty much worse than it was in California, which was already bad.
Yikes.
They have a very limited TV broadcast, which is like hosted by Steve Albert and Dick Hammer.
Originally, I was going to ask if like Steve Albert was like related to Marv Albert, and now I heard the second name, and I'm a little less interested in the answer to that first
That's
question.
the only reason I said it.
I was just going to say, maybe they had like struggling viewership numbers because they were censored immediately. Someone's, whoa, can't put that on air. What's his name?
So it was interesting because of their broadcaster choice, all of their games had to be played at 10 p.m. or later.
And they had nice baseline to it.
Well, they had an incredible rivalry with Red Shoe Diaries to try to see, like, it was just a viewership battle. All these financial struggles, they start to take a toll on the players. Swig asked his team to take a 27% pay cut on their salaries, which is already nuts. Eventually, the players, February 18th, they threatened to not come out on the ice. Eventually, they kind of come to an agreement with the NHLPA where they're able to like subsidize some of the money there. But the team doesn't make the playoffs. It's a really disappointing season overall, and it's a rough one. So then we're on to our second season. Somehow they survived.
Second season's always better than the first.
That's what people always say.
Always say that.
They always say that. No longer are they owned by Swig. He actually ends up selling to the Gund brothers. And they actually
names are not real. Swig, Gund, Dick Hammer, get out of here.
How dare you suggest that this hasn't been thoroughly researched and vetted? They had one little highlight in the season. They did beat the defending Stanley Cup champions Montreal Canadiens in a game. So,
they had the player that they should have had.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, Lafleur actually ended up in the 2 seasons that the Barons existed. He scored 268 points, and the Canadiens won the Stanley Cup both years.
That is rough.
What could have been? Either way, it's another terrible season. They miss the playoffs again. A bunch of their players do end up going to, like, the 1978 IHF World Hockey Championships.
Wow,
so,
just like your Leafs.
Yeah. They also have the Gunn brothers go over at this time. And then in one of the most insane deals that has probably ever happened in the NHL, signed on a napkin, they basically agree to no longer exist. They agree to merge with the Minnesota North Stars, but like,
not take their name, not take their players, not take anything or money.
some of the players go there, but like it's not even all of them. It's written on a napkin.
Why is
What
it
do you
napkin?
expect?
Why is
There
it
wasn't a
always a
lot of
napkin?
details.
Yeah.
Fitting end for a terrible franchise.
Do you think that happened to like the Coyotes at multiple points, but they just didn't have napkins at the restaurant?
I did mention this is a bit of a conspiracy theory here. In the late 80s, the Guns actually tried to move the Minnesota North Stars to Northern California, and the move was blocked by the NHL. Actually, it did end up being a pretty good business decision because then mysteriously in 1991, the Gunn brothers were awarded an expansion team. I don't know if you've heard of these guys before, but the San Jose Sharks.
Your San Jose Sharks.
They own them now.
The theory comes in where it's like this is basically the exact reverse of what happened to the Barons. So it's kind of like because all these kind of like shady deals were made on napkins and there's things that were, okay, well, why was this move blocked? Why was this move blocked? And then why is suddenly this ownership, who seemed like not a great owner, why was he given this franchise suddenly? I think the Gunn brothers were encouraged to give up on the team.
In just knowing that in the future they might get another team?
Exactly.
That feels like a huge miss. Like Cleveland feels like a city that should care about the NHL the same way that, I don't know, like a Boston would, where they got great sports fans, it's cold there, and they're dedicated to their teams. If they had just done this earlier, this feels like Cleveland would have been a team that you look at and you're like, yeah, like that's a hockey city on top of all the other things. Give Cleveland another shot.
Yeah?
I'm all for it.
You feel that way?
I don't know. Like again, Cleveland feels like a city that like needs an NHL team. It just feels odd that that's missing on the NHL's team list.
We like to at the end of these decide if we solved this mystery or not. Do you feel that we've adequately answered any questions surrounding it?
I mean, you answered my curiosities. Have we solved anything? Now, over 3.
We'll call this like 0-2-1. You know, it's a bit of an overtime loss.
Is this
you know?
is an overtime loss?
Yeah. Well, I know what happened to the franchise now.
And they just disappeared on a napkin.
I agree. It is an overtime loss.
Whatever.